No, I got it. I'm not going to plug it in. It's got 100%. You know, if this doesn't work, it's screwed up. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
If we could please take our seats so that we can get underway at 9 o'clock, please. Thank you. Well, good morning and welcome. Welcome to our third council meeting in the space of 6 weeks, and I've been assured that it will not carry on like this. We will not be having council meetings on average every 2 weeks, which will be a great relief, I think, for all of us. But welcome to those who are here in person. Welcome to all those who are online. Welcome to staff. Welcome to community board chairs, and welcome to the councillors. We have a fairly full agenda today. And there's a lot that we do need to get through. So hopefully we will be able to manage the meeting efficiently. But we'll begin with a karakia, and if I could ask people to stand, please. E te hui whaea te mātoronga kia marama. Kia whae take nā mahi katoa, tu maia, tu kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tato I a tato katoa. And that translates to, for this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do. Stand tall, be strong, and let us show respect for each other. Thank you. Item 1.2 on the agenda, are there any apologies? There being none, move on to...
Through here. Councillor Ashman.
Right, okay. Thank you. Councillor Ashman.
I think we should just note his apologies for now.
Right, okay, we'll note his apologies. Do you have any? No. Right, okay. Okay, so we'll note that he is late. Do we need to accept that?
Yes, please.
Okay, okay, so we'll note that. I move that be noted. Seconder, please. Thank you, Tony. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So we move now to the public forum, and we have 7 items on the public forum, and we're going to begin with Ray Van Bainen, who is online. Good morning, Ray. If I could just say in this public forum, we will be sticking strictly to the 5 minutes. So when the gong goes or I yell, please don't be offended that it's not about what you're talking about. It's the fact that we just need to get through what is going to be quite a large public forum. So Ray, if we could hand over to you, and your 5 minutes gets underway now. Thank you. Ray, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. He's not on mute, is he? Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to Jeff Robinson. Jeff, can you hear me? Jeff, you're on mute.
Oh, good morning, Peter. Sorry, can you hear me now? It's Ray speaking.
Ray. Yes, we can. So we're back to Ray.
Okay, sorry. 4.5 minutes left. Look, it's just around the entrance to Hahei, what we call Snake Gully affectionately. Temporary remediation work has been done since Gabriel. It's nearly 3 years since the storm itself, and we're still waiting for it to be repaired properly. A couple of weeks ago, there was a couple of very near misses where cyclists were coming down the hill. A camper van went to overtake them. It's quite narrow where the temporary barriers are, and my wife and one of her companions was almost no longer with us. So my questions really are, and we've had a number of promises over the last few years from the roading engineering people saying it's going to be October 2025, then November. Funding's been approved, but we've really seen no action. And from a safety perspective and from a community patients perspective, we would really appreciate a timeline and a date when that is going to be repaired, please, Peter.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. Are there any questions from councillors or community board chairs for clarification from Ray? Could I ask that staff make a note of that, please? Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Oh, Alison, sorry.
Good morning. Thank you through the mayor. I just wondered, we do have the roading manager here. Is it possible to get an answer, or is that something that should wait?
No, that all sit with staff. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Jeff Robinson online. Jeff, can you hear us? Because we can't hear you. Are you on mute, Jeff? Yeah. So, Jeff, you are on mute according to us at this end. Are you in a position to unmute? Okay, so Jeff, we'll come back to you. The next person, Nira Giri, is Nira. Thank you, Nira. And if you push the button on the right-hand side, everything will go red, and that means you are live. Thank you. Your 5 minutes starting now.
Nira Takuingawa from Whirianga. Under the principles of public law, I'm here to talk about communication, including natural justice, proportionality, and the right to participate in local democratic process. I seek clarification as to why I have been denied the ability to communicate with the council by email and why a 2-year ban has been imposed. As a ratepayer and a member of the public, I have legitimate expectations to engage with elected representatives and council staff unless clear, lawful, and proportionate grounds exist to restrict that right. Any limitations on communication must be reasonable, transparent, and accompanied by reasons, evidence, and an opportunity to respond. As required by the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990 and established administrative law principles, in the absence of written justification, due process, or a right to review, the ban appears arbitrary and inconsistent with public law obligations for fairness, accountability, and openness. Effective council communication. It is not merely procedural, it is a moral responsibility. Through respectful, transparent, and courageous dialogue, councils protect democracy and ensure communities are not taken advantage of. So I've broken down, begin with respect for human dignity. As a teacher, all communication must start from the belief that every person has an inherent worth. Without this dialogue comes control rather than understanding. Seek truth, not victory. Effective communication is not about winning arguments. The emphasis seeking shared truth, which protects people from propaganda, coercion, and misinformation. Practice deep listening. True dialogue requires listening to understand, not to respond. When people are heard, they are less vulnerable to manipulation. Cultivate inner integrity. The ethical communication comes from a strong inner moral compass. Those grounded in their values are harder to deceive or exploit. Ask courageous questions. Encouraging questioning, especially of authority, prevents blind obedience, and I believe dialogue thrives on inquiry, not silence. Reject fear-based language. Communication that uses fear, shame, or urgency is often a tool for exploitation. We are warned against rhetoric that weakens independent thought. Share knowledge transparently. Without information creates power imbalance. TCDC needs to promote open education and clarity so people can make informed decisions, such as whether we use a Christchurch-based water company, City Care, or a company closer to our home.
Nira, you have 1 more minute.
Thank you. Build mutual responsibility. Dialogue needs to empower both parties to act responsibly. I view communication as a shared ethical act, not one-sided persuasion. Value cultural and individual differences. Recognizing diversity prevents domination by a single narrative, which is what we're getting. I believe and have witnessed pluralism as essential to protecting human freedom. And the last thing I want to mention is transform conflict through compassion. Rather than escalate, I advocate compassionate dialogue that transforms conflict without submission or force.
Nira, thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Councillors or community board chairs, any questions for clarification from Nira? Councillor Sinclair.
Could turn it around that way if you like. Kia ora, Nara. Thank you.
G'day.
One of the decisions that we are looking at today is opening workshops. Do you have an opinion about that? In terms
Well,
of
as long as you're engaging with our community, I am all for it, because there are decisions that are being made, especially in Whirianga and Hahei to Whangapoa, that aren't including the everyday people who pay you guys. We pay our rates. We get told one thing by council, they do another thing, and then our water rates are increased by $175.78. I ask the question, no one answers those questions. So
Nira, thank you for those comments. Are there any other questions from the councillors? Could I ask that a note be taken of the...
And since I'm not able to email, I've written it by hand. You guys can have a copy.
Just
a note be taken
sorry,
of
Your Worship,
the
I have my hand
initial
up.
concerns that she had. Richard.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the 13th of November, Esther Smith had offered for you to come into the office, and I also had taken up that offer for you to go and get some
I have not been offered by Esther to come to the office.
Board Chair Richard, this is an
well.
opportunity to ask a question for clarification, not to make statements.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I'll just clarify that. When the option was taken up, did you go into the Monk Street office to get some clarifications of the questions that you wanted to ask when offered?
No one invited me to go to the office for any clarification.
Okay, thank you. We'll stop that one there. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nira. Jeff Robinson. Jeff? Jeff, are you online? And if so, could you just indicate that you can hear us? Okay, We'll move on to the Thames Horaki anti-mining submission. Welcome, Catherine, and welcome, Shakit. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Your time begins now.
Told that by plugging this in, it should work.
Well, while he does that, he mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Tēnā koe Ngāti Maru Councillor Bylaw, to the Mayor, to all the councillors, to all the staff, to all the tangata whenua and tangata tiriti in the room. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk. Over to Shaket.
Kia ora. And so my name is Shaket. This is Catherine. We're speaking on behalf of Thames Horaki Anti-Mining. If there are 3 points we want you to take today from this, is one that mining in our district is not something that may be happening in the future. It's restarting now, so we need our attention on this. The risks to the environment and to the community are major, and the community does expect TCDC to take a proactive approach to keep us safe and to include us in decision making on this. I'm just going to quickly touch on a few mining permits that are already in place from MBIE. So one is right across from Whangamata to Hikutaya, Nivesville, and down to Pairoa. And they are already planning to start to apply. They've already been in communication with TCDC on this. Right around the Puridi community, there's another application. In Broken Hills, people who know that beautiful area there, they've already made a resource consent application with TCDC and WRC. And the new one is right across the whole of Thames Township foreshore. So I'll pass it to Caitlin to talk about these issues.
Okay, so the foreshore one, Hawkswood Mining from Otago, who have already been in trouble because they started mining under an exploration license. So they have not shown good faith to that community. But why we're so concerned about it right here, right there in this town is the foreshore is already contaminated. So we have 4 major problems with heavy metals here: arsenic, zinc, lead, and mercury. The arsenic in particular is above national standards. That's why in Monetieri, you're not allowed to grow vegetables on the hotspots. And that they say that this was the research done by council last time we had this crisis with Monetieri, is that the arsenic is so high that a small child could die from eating a handful of soil. So we have a layer of sediment on top of the metals from previous centuries mining. We have a huge risk, not only to human health if we disturb that layer of sediment and let loose these heavy metals, but also because we're right adjacent, as you all know, to the Ramsar area, one of the greatest international wading bird sanctuaries in the world, just adjacent to the permit. And the permit goes onto the land around Kuranui Bay, where the park is, as well as along the coast. And so we are just letting you know that the community, we held a meeting which many councillors did attend, where there was more than 80 people saying no one said yes to mining there. So we know that right now the law is under a great deal of flux, but what we're saying at this point, before the application goes through, the permit will go through MB, but when it comes to you, that you need to engage with us, that we have very clear opposition in this community to this and many other of the permits, and that our expectation is, no matter what the new laws look like, is that you as our representatives, many of whom have expressed views that mining is not a great idea for this area, engage with us all throughout the process and make sure that we are not just consulted, but listened to around what we really want for this area. So we look forward. I'm also the chair of Coromandel Watchdog of Hauraki, and I've been involved for 45 years with this issue. We look forward to Watchdog having a meeting with the Regulatory Planning Committee in the early new year. We expect to be able to sit down and talk more in depth, but right now we're here because Hawkswood is a direct threat to Thames. People do not want it, and we expect you to actively engage with us to understand this issue and reject it through whatever legal means are available to us in this current climate.
1 minute to go. Sid?
Yep.
Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, board chairs, questions. Councillor Sinclair.
There was a member of the public at the meeting that we attended last week who talked about e-waste mining. And I wondered, and particularly Shaked, thinking about your close association as a trustee of the Seagull Centre, is TCDC doing enough through our waste minimisation and management plan to manage e-waste and the potential benefits that could be brought to the minerals industry through the recovery of resources through there?
I'm sure we can do a lot more. And as you know, Seagull Centre is doing some stuff. But I think the key point here is that, even if we did do more here and more there, the risk is not so much about the lack of recycling opportunities or the lack of investment in gold recycling at the moment, which is very needed. But the risk is that we are just opening our doors to these companies. The district plan is not sufficiently restrictive. We have a government that's really inviting and calling on multinational mining companies to come right across. And so we really need people at council and the community to be really clear about how we stop that until we have a process that really makes it redundant.
And I'll just add that the tangata whenua and other members of the public at the public meeting made it really clear there is no cultural or social license to mine our foreshore or the peninsula as a whole. And I think although there is a company that has worked out how to extract from our laptops and our phones, how to get, that's called urban mining, and that's the future of mining on the planet, and many countries are doing it, and we are dragging behind on that issue. I'm not putting that one onto the TCDC to
thank you.
that.
Councillor Rasmussen.
Kia ora. Thank you for your passionate submission. Just to try and contextualise it, can you give us an idea about who you're speaking on behalf of?
Councillor Rasmussen, do you have a question?
That was the question.
Okay.
Sure. Thames Hauraki, how many on our mailing list for Thames Hauraki do you think?
Over 200, and it's growing quickly with that foreshore application.
And obviously Coromandel Watchdog, we have 6,000 members right across the country.
And I guess we've already, because this mining application at the foreshore is not the first one, we've had public meetings in Puriri and public meetings in Hikutaya, and they're well attended. So, we don't have a membership list as much as such, but there's a vast amount of people, as we can see in all these pictures.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned a proactive approach. I'm just wondering, aside from obviously us understanding the issue and you stated rejecting it through whatever means we have available to us, what would you see as some examples of a proactive approach that we can take?
Well, for a start, you should notify any consent that comes to you straight away so that there can be a public process. I know the law is under flux at the moment, but we're still under the old laws. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think public notification is the key issue that we have to work towards. For example, the fact that there is already a resource consent application for 6 drilling sites right near amazing walking tracks and the Tairua River, and no one knows about it, is really problematic.
Okay, could I request once again that staff note those requests and factor them into the process as we move forward. Thank you both. Thank you for a crisp presentation. If you would like councillors to have that presentation, could you please forward it through to the government staff and they can get distributed. Thank you very much.
That's been done.
Jeff Robinson. There you go, Jeff. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeff. You have 5 minutes, and that begins right now. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Robinson, joining the meeting this morning from Port Charles, and thank you for the opportunity to address council at this busy year-end time. First, I would like to congratulate the mayor and all councillors on your recent election and to extend all good wishes for a productive and successful term. I join many others in the district who are very optimistic about the direction this council will be taking. I'd like to briefly address agenda item 2.3, response to the Chief Ombudsman's Open for Business report. As you're well aware, this issue has been of considerable interest district-wide, not only during the recent local elections, but ever since it was first very briefly debated in June 2024. Shorthand for this issue is transparency, and it really goes to the heart of what makes truly representative local government work. It reflects very well on this council that this item was put on the table last month and is up for consideration today before workshops begin early in the new year. My comments are made wearing two hats. First, as a 27-year resident of the district interested, like many others, in public affairs and public policy. Secondly, as a career journalist. Staff has presented two options to align council policy with the Ombudsman's recommendations, both making workshops open to the public by default. Option one would have workshops open by in-person attendance only. Option two would be open by attendance in person and via live streaming and posting on the council's YouTube channel. This is to urge council to adopt option two. Staff has summarized well the advantages of option two. They boil down to maximizing openness and transparency as opposed to simply improving it marginally. Here are a few very basic reasons well understood by everyone around the council table. In-person attendance at workshops is simply impractical, if not totally impossible for most residents. Council holds meetings during the day when people are working. They're at the office, in the shops, at the job site, running errands, caring for kids or elders. They simply can't attend a workshop or any council meeting, even if it's across the street. And there's the distance factor. I'm dialing in this morning from Port Charles. We're more than 2 hours each way from Thames. East Coast communities are well over an hour each way. Attendance at a meeting or workshop requires close to a full day commitment, and it's simply not doable for most people. Fortunately, as for community board and full council meetings, live streaming and the YouTube channel can address this problem efficiently, this being the main feature of option two. Those interested can either dial in and view live or view when it's convenient. They can see who said what information was shared, hear arguments pro and con, and learn a tremendous amount from the proceedings. That's a public service in itself. It's bringing the public along with council in the governing process. It's truly part of democracy in action. From the perspective of news gatherers, especially in this age of limited resources, the same factors of time and physical distance also apply. Some reporters have to cover multiple boards or meetings or beats, and they simply can't be all over the map every day. Meanwhile, more and more reporting in New Zealand and around the world is, in fact, being done by part-time and volunteer writers and reporters. Most
Jeff, you have 1 more minute.
Thank you. And limited available time. Again, live streaming and prompt posting. Option two is the same practical solution if the public's to be informed. Providing summary notes of workshops as staff have initiated over the past year and as suggested in option one is unfortunately not very helpful. As for recording on a case-by-case basis, the fact is all workshops are important. These are all equally and highly important topics. Again, all workshops should be live streamed and posted, not some. I'd like to thank everyone around the council who's made a significant commitment to transparency, openness, and accountability already. Option two would be the best way to put those commitments into action when we kick off 2026. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jeff. Well done on the timing. Appreciate that. Councillors, board chairs, any questions of Jeff Robinson? Councillor Sinclair?
Kia ora, Jeff. Just wanting to know, I know that you've written a number of reports in one of our newspapers.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Getting there. Are you speaking on behalf of somewhere where you have published reports about this, or are you speaking on behalf of yourself as an independent journalist?
I'm speaking, A, as myself as a resident, and B, as an independent journalist. Because I write stories occasionally for The Informer, for Waikato Times, and for a number of other.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? Councillor Rasmussen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Whilst imperfect, would you agree that option 1 actually meets all of the points raised in the Chief Ombudsman's recommendations?
To my knowledge, it meets some of them, and it just does not go far. It does not meet them fully, no, frankly, because I think there's an issue of accessibility. And that's the main reason why recording is now common practice. Not only it's common practice for councils throughout New Zealand, district councils, regional councils, for community boards and all the rest.
Thank
and
you.
I think that
Councillor Rasmussen, you got a follow-up question.
Complementary question. Thank you. Referring to the principles of open by default, clear public commitments and so forth, which are embedded in the Chief Ombudsman's recommendations. Specifically, which of those principles do you not believe option 1 meets?
You know what? I would have to be actually looking at the wording there, precisely of that. I mean, I've read the 60 pages of the report a number of times, but I'm not in a position on to,
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'm just curious, Jeff, do you see any of these options as, are they ideal? Is there an ideal for you, or are these not going far enough? That's my question.
No, I think option 2, which is basically to make meetings open to the public, either by personal attendance or in the same way that this meeting is being carried on, that it's being live streamed and that it'll be posted later on the website for people who can't be there, that does the job. The problem with, if I could just stand for 1 second, because council staff did make a stab at it subsequent to June 24 by posting those notes and all the rest. The reason that's just, which is essentially the option 1,
Jeff, I think you've answered Councillor Smith's question. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, there being none. Jeff, thank you very much, and thanks for the clarity of your presentation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The next is Grant Short, please. So, Grant, I have here that you are speaking on your own behalf, and then you will be speaking on behalf of the Matarangi Resident Ratepayers Association, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time this morning. I know it's very valuable, but I've been looking at water for a long time in Matarangi and throughout TCDC, and we go by the principles of safe, sufficient and sustainable. Councillors may or may not be aware that the charging regime for potable water varies depending whether you have a meter or not. At the moment, there's a volumetric measure and a line fee. The percentage increase in the volumetric fee seems to be held at about 3%, regardless of whatever happens on the basis of affordability. Now, it's a bit of a mirage to me because the affordability is the total cost of supply of water to the residents. So the line fee has to be taken into account anyway. The way the council seems to calculate the charges are A, decide how much they will get through the volumetric fee, and then the rest is divided into line fees. Now, of course, if you don't have a meter, you don't know how much water has actually been used. You may have a general idea. It seems to be that the differential ratio used is there to actually cover for the unknown amount of water a non-metered site actually uses. This has resulted in a transfer of revenue from metered sites to non-metered sites. It's not just Matarangi, it's Whangamata, anyone who doesn't have a meter. So currently around 9,000 out of the 20,000 odd connections. Now this has been accelerating over the last 2 or 3 years, and Matarangi is deemed to be the last cab off the block for meters in 2031. By that stage, I think the discrepancy will be huge, huge. I would like Council to consider actually investigating the true cost of providing water on an equal basis before we get to the annual plan and the striking of rates next year, because it's more involved than what one would think superficially. Now, I'm a pharmacist by profession, now retired, and we are detailed people. And I don't want to get into detail here because it take forever.
Thank you.
So I have provided some information to you to take away and read, and you'll no doubt huge poll you get every council meeting. I've been through this myself before, but a couple of truisms. You don't know what you don't know, and percentages don't pay bills, dollars do. And it's very easy to get the wrong impression about numbers by how they're presented. Excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Now, I believe the current fee for the water by the volumetric fee is too low to give behavioural change. The model of the 3 waters has been changed completely, turned upside down, inside out, whatever way you want to look at it. And this is an opportunity for TCDC to actually do the same with the model of charging and supply. And that will involve time and effort. And I don't think it's possible to wait till the May, until the annual plan comes around to start that process. But so where am I getting to? We need universal water metering, and we need it now. And we don't want and don't need dumb meters on the ground. The cost of data collection is high, and you don't get the data out of it that you actually need to be able to charge and learn from patterns and where leakage is. Now that will involve capital, I realise that, but the sooner we invest, the sooner we get some return. I do have a few notes in there too about the depreciation levy and
you have 1 minute to go on your personal submission.
Depreciation levy, which I have a fundamental problem with grasping. If we put in a replacement or a new bit of plant, that's been the last 40 years. I, as a ratepayer, have been asked to fund the capital, fund the interest on the capital, and then basically rent it by depreciation, on the basis that the money of depreciation is there to replace that asset further down. Well, that's great for my kids and grandkids. But it's actually sucking money out now where we should be investing in our infrastructure. Things will take care of themselves down the track. So I have fundamental problems grasping why we're doing that. The other one is the developmental levies. Now, the policy document I've looked at is about this thick. It's almost like the road cone book of 583 pages. Surely we can have a 2-page plain English explanation of what development levies, how they're raised and how we use them. I can't see why Matarangi is investing into the council building at Whangamata. I'm not sure how many times I go to Whangamata a year, but I certainly don't go there to go to the council building. There's a lot of money there for reserves. Mara Reserve and Matarangi, great place, could be fantastic, but you can't do anything with no funds. I just think overall the council accounts are so complicated, reserves all over the place. It's so hard to follow. I have real problems.
Okay. So that's the end of that 5 minutes. You're happy to take questions from councillors and board chairs on what Grant has shared. Deputy Mayor Grant.
Thanks, Grant. It was a good presentation. Appreciate you coming in. The question that I have is, I think I've taken from what you've said that your request to council is for two priorities. One is the rollout of water metering across the district, and the second is to review the methodology behind the pricing. Have I got that right?
That's the basic premise, yes. Yeah.
And the timeframes that you would want to see for that?
I'd like to see it start yesterday.
And
sufficient time so the options can be discussed and understood by the ratepayers as well as the councillors. It can be a very complex subject, but I think there's some themes running through there which are sort of fairly self-evident.
Right. And I think I also heard a third priority, and that was around the basis of depreciation and the charging over assets from a lifetime point of view. Is it?
Well, yeah, I'm no accountant, but the logic tells me that all the money has just been charged up front. The people coming behind us, so you give them a free ticket, but it doesn't include the cost of inflation.
Yep.
It's just.
So those three things are the three.
Thank you. Councillor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think we just had a masterclass in what's called leading questions. I couldn't have done it better myself. And in the same vein, Grant, would you say that the concerns of the community are equally as high on storage of water capacity in Matarangi and the actual aqua itself as on the metering?
Well, storage I was going to come to in a moment, but yes, safe, sustainable and sufficient. And there's some interesting little thoughts in there that council has for many years decried the fact that we have this vast number of people come into the community over Christmas.
Will you be covering that okay. So could we hold that for that question? Any other questions of Grant on that matter? Yes, Councillor Brulovich.
Yeah, good morning, Grant. You've clearly studied this and put a lot of thought into it. Just your view on, until such times as all properties are metered, do you think it would be fairer to divide the cost of water equally over all connections?
That's a difficult question because we don't know the high and low. We don't know where the median is or the mean. Now, with Matarangi and Whangamata, even Whitianga to an extent, has a high percentage of the population is not there most of the year. So to put the cost into a line fee signals to the ratepayer that I might as well use as much water as I like because I paid for it. So that's where it gets interesting without the information and background to answer a question like yours straight off.
Thank you. And could we make this the last question, please, in this session? Board Chair Richard Shelford Woodcock, please.
Actually, Worship, Tony Brilovich asked a question I wanted to put forward, so I withdraw my question. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Again, could I request that those points that be noted by staff, please? Right. Matarangi Resident Ratepayers Association. Grant?
Right. I've been through the fact we don't believe dumb meters are a good idea. If you're going to put something in the ground, it might as well be state of the art so you actually get the data out that you want. Otherwise, so by the time I put meters throughout TCDC, it would take two people all year to read them twice. It just seems dead money where you can actually pick that up electronically. Much more information there. You can find out perhaps where the leaks are. For many years, I've read that the council has real problems with the capital investment required to deal with the summer peak of use. One scheme was to actually have a bed tax on accommodation, which would be hard to administer, costly, and return bugger all, pardon the French. One thing that everyone uses is water. So I would consider, and this may sound terrible, but increasing the price of water for the period of the peak period. That money is collected through the volumetric fee and can be used for that community where it's raised from for funding the increased storage. Now we realise the capital is expensive and it's in great demand. But unless we do that, I can't see that we're actually going to make some progress on having communities that have a summer you can live in, not just exist. For Matarangi, the new plant, I'm not sure it's ready yet or not, but the new plant can actually process more than we could before. The only thing is now the water consent has decreased, so we're no further ahead. So we have storage problems in Matarangi to meet that 10, 15-day period. What's the best way of achieving that? Again, we need to sort of discuss the options. Reduce leakage. And I don't think, honestly, anyone's got any idea the true leakage involved.
You have 1 minute to go, Grant.
And the concept of ring fencing, I would have thought ring fencing of monies raised for water, wastewater or whatever would have been a fundamental accounting principle. I believe you're not allowed to make a profit out of water. I don't think making a surplus, which is reinvested in that water community, is wrong. But I can't see anywhere in the council where we have an unders and overs situation where if we get the volumetric fee volume low and we have a good sales year, where does that money go? If there's not enough, what happens? I just think the whole thing needs to be thought out again and delivered in a way that provides information for us to make rational decisions for the future.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any further questions of Grant? Councillor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just coming back to my previous question, and you've answered the one about storage. So I'd like to get your answer to, does the Matarangi community see the single point of failure existing aqua connection, which is aging, as a similar high priority as storage and water metering?
Our Achilles heel was the pipeline from Opitanui across to Matarangi. At the moment, it can pull through 2,000 cubes a day. It doesn't seem to be able to handle anything more. But if that pipeline goes, and I believe anecdotally there's 2 episodes of where it has failed, then we're down to teacups, down the water tanker survival. We don't have backup water supplies. So storage is fundamental to take away that paramount risk. And when that pipeline is put in, they use explosives to put a trench in the harbour. I don't think that will pass muster the second time. So the time frame involved is going to be lengthy.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Good morning, Grant. I'm curious to know your thoughts on, this was raised at a meeting that I attended yesterday in the Tairua community, which also has a high influx of non-permanent residents over summer. Your thoughts on water tanks and residents storing their own water, including perhaps non-potable water for reuse in garden and things like that. Just curious to know what the Matarangi community thinks around that idea.
Well, I think if council makes decisions, it needs to make them clear in terms of that's what they expect residents to do because they can't supply why. It's at the moment, I think we're beating around the bush in some ways in terms of making the fundamentals clear and obvious. You know, Waikato Regional Council is reducing supply availability. Seems to be as we go along. So we're going to have to do more with less. And if that's the decision that the council wishes to put to the actual communities, so be it. But it needs to be clear.
Thank you. Okay, we'll hold questions there. Thank you, Grant, for very clear presentation, and your points are noted. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Right. And Anne Barker and Rachel Gamby.
Kia ora koutou. Ko moe hei te maunga, ko tikapa te moana, ko te koe rangataku papakainga. Kei te Pākehā hau, ko Anne Barker taku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Good morning, Your Worship the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and District Councillors, both new and continuing. My name is Anne Barker and I'm here as the spokesperson for Thames Needs a Pool group. Thames Needs a Pool, that's the name of our group. We have 70 people on our mailing list receiving our newsletter, and our first meeting attendance of 4 has grown to 14, regularly coming to our monthly meetings. With apologies from others, people are getting pretty exercised about this issue. Our group is asking for a like-for-like 7.5 lane, 25 metre outdoor pool with staging of construction to build a learn-to-swim pool as stage 2. While the sub-regional facility is incredibly appealing, in today's economic climate, it is probably a bit of a pipe dream. In the early 1970s, the Thames community built our existing Centennial pool. We are now asking for help to relocate and build a replacement. In the nigh on 50 years since the initial construction, there should have accumulated a potential seed fund of depreciation, but I understand this is non-existent. I understand that there are endowments from the old Thames Borough Council days, which are dedicated to be spent within the Thames ward. Here is another potential fund source. I also understand that land was purchased out near Rhodes Park for one of the sites that was earlier considered for the relocated pool. Here is a further source of funding if this land has or will be sold. I do appreciate that the Eastern Seaboard councillors feel that as they fundraise for their community pool, so should Thames. However, our community has already done this once. And in terms of demographics, Thames does not host many ratepayers who may own other properties in other council districts, or in general terms, our ratepayers do not have sizable disposable incomes. Those visitors that are going to the other areas aren't so much coming to Thames. Our population is probably one of the oldest, and we have a growing number of rough sleepers. In short, our fundraising will look different to those in some of those beautiful Eastern Seaboard seaside towns. However, I also suggest perhaps the new Eastern Seaboard sewage schemes have been funded regionally. And in light of this, I suggest that a similarly altruistic attitude towards the council underwriting the replacement pool would enable our group to go out and develop public-private partnerships and seek funding. Without council commitment to a firm plan and financial underwriting, we can't progress this project. We're seeking to support a like-for-like 7.5 lane, 25 metre outdoor pool with staging construction to build a learn-to-swim pool as stage 2. We're also concerned at the number of options that have been considered and subsequently not acted upon, thereby effectively wasting that money spent on consultants. This is the latest report and surveys. We're now hearing that the Thames High School, who were originally happy for the pool to be constructed on their site, are now not so certain. The site out at Rhodes Park had some fairly comprehensive plans prepared that will no doubt now be out of date. We have a group of keen people with energy and experience to share with this project. However, we need to get both the site and the plan agreed to in order to ensure that Thames is without a pool for as short a time as possible. As it is, we have swimmers who travel to Thames from Coromandel, from Whitianga, from Tairua, from Whangamata, as well as outside of the TCTC region to make use of our all-weather provision of aquatic facilities. Perhaps The appointment of a steering committee to investigate options, report back and liaise with community groups is the next step. The goal of this group should be to identify a definite site, lock this down and update or prepare plans to bring before council. Council can then implement the financial planning that was indicated in the last long-term plan. And Thames needs a pool can then swing into action, canvassing far and wide for funding for this amazing resource for our community.
1 minute to go.
If you need further information, reports, investigations of existing facilities, let our group know. We'll do our best to support the process as we move forward together. Like for like, 7.5 lane, 25 metre outdoor pool with staging for construction to build a learn to swim pool at stage 2. Ehara, ko koe te ringi e hutipunga. Yes, yours is the arm best suited to pull up the anchor. You have it in you. The can has been kicked down the road so long it's getting well out of shape. Let's do this.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions? Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, Worship. I have 3 questions, if I may.
Could you just keep them very succinct, please?
Yes, always. You mentioned the Thames High School is now considering or needing to hear from council on certainty around this. Otherwise, they move on and may use that space for other purposes. Do you know if they've put a time frame on that at all?
No, I don't know.
Right. Okay. Secondly, do you have any progress on becoming a formal entity, Thames Neeta Pool?
We were going to be working alongside and taking, I don't know if taking over is the right word, but working in with what was the Zoom Zone. It's a proper name is Thames Community Sport and Education Trust. And I'm waiting to hear on Mary because of this process of changing over trustees. So that's in Mary Hamilton's hands at the moment. And certainly we've got people who have volunteered to take over that role.
Thank you. And finally, have you had a recent update from the project management staff from council on this?
I spoke to Chris Rutherford, who is the manager of Parks and Reserves, I understand. And basically, it sounded like a lot of things were about to happen, but he couldn't disclose exactly what they were. So yes, and so we've got another meeting scheduled for January. So we're just trying to keep those communication lines really current and trying to keep things moving and sharing information, because I'm finding in this process that there's a lot of information in the community, which I'm just feeding in, trying to get one repository for all of this so that everyone gets that, transparent communication.
Thank you, Anne. Other question, Councillor Freer.
And as a key user group, have you had any discussion with Ngāti Maru about the potential to prolong the life of the pool, or is that something that your group would do?
As I understand it, the council has agreed to hand back the land that the pool is on, and that the decommissioning process is due to start in July 2027. As that is an agreement, and I believe possibly part of Te Tiriti o Waitangi settlement, it's not for us to enter into that negotiation.
Okay, one final question. The existing pool in the perfect world, how much further lifespan would that have?
I'm not a pool engineer is my short answer. Longer answer, again, I would be inviting experts to advise on that, pool construction people, and it would need major refurbishment, but there is an agreement. So it's a little bit of a moot point unless the council is speaking with Ngāti Maru, because as I understand it, it's your collective agreement with the iwi.
Can I just ask one final quickly, Peter? Does it currently meet the pool users' requirements?
There is some work that would be helpful to do, but these people here are happy for anything that's 25 metres long and water in it.
Thank you, Anne. Any other questions? Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could I have someone to move? Well, I'll move the acceptance of the public forum, seconded by Councillor Rodley. Those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Thank you, everybody in the public forum, for taking the time and to be with us. And while that was taking place, welcome to Board Chair Warwick Brooks. Welcome to Councillor Rob Ashman, who came in, and Councillor Rasmussen. If I could just offer my apologies for anticipating not a question, but a statement, and I got that wrong, and I apologise for that. Thank you.
Apology accepted.
If we could move on. Item 1.4, any late urgent items? There being none. Item 1.5, conflict of interest. Anybody have a conflict of interest to declare? Councillor Brilovich. Okay, thank you. Noted. Cool. Item 1.6, if we can move on to the minutes for confirmation. So initially on page 5, the recommendation is to receive the minutes from the 27th of November meeting and confirm the Thames Coromandel minutes held on the 25th of November as true and correct. Do I have a mover?
I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconder, Councillor Rasmussen. Thank you. Any discussion? There being none, we'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. External committee minutes for receiving. Item 1.7 on page 14. So we are receiving the minutes of the Waikato Regional Council Hierarchy Scheme Subcommittee and the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grant. Seconder for receiving those minutes, Councillor Rodley. Any discussion? Councillor Grant.
Could I just clarify for the Waikato Regional Council Hierarchy Scheme Subcommittee, it doesn't appear that we had a representative at that meeting. Is there a reason why?
Councillor Rodley?
I believe the governance folk did look into that.
Through the chair, it is believed that we actually had a council meeting on the same day. So Councillor Rodley, who is our rep, his apology should have been noted. So we just need to touch base with Waikato Regional about that.
Councillor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's the 16th of December now. We had an outgoing council, I can understand that. We've had 2 other council meetings since then, 31 October, 25 November. Why are we on the 16th of December dealing with minutes that relates back to August and September? So it's a timing question.
I can answer that through the chair. It was also a timing reason for us too, in terms of they were not available with Waikato Regional until now.
Deputy Mayor Grant, do you want to make any comment around the civil defence and emergency minutes?
No, not specifically. There was another meeting held yesterday of the group, which comprised a whole lot of new faces around the table. And there is a great deal of work going on, particularly in the area of submissions to central government at the moment. So it's quite a busy and active time for that group.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, I'll put the motion on page 14 to receive the external committee minute report and to receive the external minutes. Okay. And to receive the external minutes. We've got a mover, we have a seconder. All put the motion, all those in favour? Aye. Contrary? No. And it's, as the Chief Executive just pointed out to me, it's appropriate to just note at this point that Deputy Mayor Grant has been elected as the Deputy Chair of that committee, the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. Yesterday was elected Deputy Chair. He has yet to assure me how he's going to fit that in with his schedule. Thank you for that. Item 1.8, we're on page 37, workshop notes and working group minutes for receiving. This is just a case of receiving it. I'd like to move that those minute workshop notes be received. Do I have a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Grant, are there any comments? Councillor Rodley?
Do we have any visibility over the numbers of people that are accessing those minutes? Is there a nice little counter somewhere that ticks over every time someone looks at one?
Well, your question's understood.
Through the chair, I'm not sure. I would have to probably talk to comms about how many times people view the set of notes. But yeah, sorry, I can't answer.
Thank you.
But we can find out.
Any other question around that? Right, I'll put the motion that we receive the workshop notes and those following notes as outlined on page 37 and 38. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Great, thank you. We now move on to item 2.1, which is a similar thing. It's just a procedural matter, the revocation of the speed limit bylaw 2005. We have staff who will speak to that briefly.
Through the chair, morning everyone. So yes, this report seeks the revocation of the speed limit bylaw 2005. The bylaw has been superseded by national provisions for setting speed limits and managing speed limits. So it is now redundant and without any regulatory power. However, procedurally, the council still needs to make the decision to revoke the bylaw, which will align us with current legislation.
Thank you very much. Do we have somebody to move? Deputy Mayor Grant?
I was just going to go straight into move that.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rodley?
Recommendations.
Is there any discussion around this? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Item 2.2, the 25-26 October budget revision. And I'll just point out at this that this is not a budgetary exercise. This is just to enable us to just have a citer on where we're likely to end up on the 30th of June. I'd also point out to councillors that I would expect everything that's in this report to be scrutinised within the Infrastructure and Finance Subcommittee. So that's where I would be expecting the scrutiny of this to take place and any questions and so on. And I would, if we could note that, please, as chair of that committee, that this is an expectation in the first meeting.
Thank you.
Okay,
Noted.
very good. Staff.
Yeah. I'll take the report as read. I guess the key financial sort of movements to sort of note are as we're seeing softer revenue conditions, so especially in the building consent space. The current economic climate has sort of impacted on that. We've seen softer development contribution revenue, which was brought up last month, so lower economic activity in that front as well. The other area where revenue's been sort of deferred is around the capital projects. So the deferral of the Tapu Cora Glen project, which was a $13 million roading project that's been deferred. So we won't get the NZTA. Well, we're not expecting to get the NZTA money for that. It's partially offset by lower finance costs, which is due to lower interest rates and a lower opening debt position. The other area of probably concern has been our depreciation. We've seen lower asset lives than we've been expected, and we're also seeing us hold assets longer than we'd estimated as well. But I guess the overall underlying operating performance remains solid, so we're still tracking really well. The only thing I would say is that it's still really early days, even though we're sort of 5 months in. A lot of our expenditure and revenue collection happens over the peak period and towards the end of the year. So December, January, and towards the end of the year, that's when we really see a lot. So whilst your operating performance is solid, it's still early days.
Thank you, Hayden. And if I could just repeat what I said before, that I do expect this will be tabled and reviewed within the Infrastructure and Planning Subcommittee. But are there any questions for clarification before we ask for the motion to be put? Councillor Brilovich. Microphone. Microphone.
Thank you, Worship. I did have a couple of questions, but I just want you to clarify. The decision is to accept this today, so why would it go to the committee for review if we've already accepted it as a council?
My response to this would be, this would normally be something that would go through the Finance Committee first. So we're here discussing it. We should discuss it. I would imagine that we'll have a new set of figures for the first of the meetings. So we'll have more, at least one more month in the information to be able to analyse and review at that time. So I think that's the context of it. So obviously, I think your point's valid that we, if there are questions, we should be clarifying those now if we're going to accept this report.
Okay, so now my question. Thank you, Hayden. You mentioned that the 13.9 million for the Tapukara Glen, that you said that funding's gone. Is that gone totally or just been deferred till next year?
Deferred is, I'll need to pass it to Mo, but it's, Aileen here.
Yeah, so when we did the last LTP, we developed a business case around road funding across the peninsula. It was a pretty significant one, and it included NZTA funding and it included a number of council projects, and it all went in a single bid in through the NZTA board. It was signed off by the NZTA board and went into the land transport plan, and then the government changed and the funding was dropped out. So the projects remained in the long-term plan because it was one of those scenarios, if you don't plan for it, you can't do the activity. So it's sitting there in the plan, but it's unfunded, which there'll be a note somewhere that says if this project doesn't receive funding, it won't go ahead. So it sits there until we decide what to do with it in the next LTP round. But there's in fact, there's no chance it'll go ahead and until the next round of land transport funding.
Okay, because I know there was quite a bit of work going on that road in recent times, so I just wondered if that was the precursor for it.
That'll be different. That'll be standard maintenance type activity.
Thank you. Councillor Smith? No. Councillor Rasmussen?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll attempt to be brief because this is obviously one of my favourite topics. Question number one is, since this report is dated on the 20th of November and we had a meeting on the 25th of November, why are we talking about October figures in December when we could have talked about them in November?
I guess it's just the meeting timing and getting them into the report, into the agenda in time. So,
okay,
yeah.
Good. Secondary question related to that. We are 3 months in to the fiscal year. I'm referring to page 45 on the pack. and we have a deviation of 33% on the bottom line. What gives you comfort when we in 3 months into the year have got a 33% variation, that in the other 9 months, of which we are still to report, that we will not see a similar slide of such dramatic size? So really what my question is, how confident are you in the budget that we're looking at for year end 30 June?
Yeah, so in terms of the percentages at the bottom line, I'm not 100% sure. You can kind of really look at it like and take that sort of as the sort of main thing to be looking at, because like for instance, one of the items that's been shifted out is $7 million of NZTA Tapu Kora Glen revenue. So firstly, there isn't the cost and there isn't the revenue. So that's why there's that budget sort of variation there from one project being shifted out.
I understand that.
The other areas like development contributions again as a capital funded sort of as capital funded revenue. So again, it's tied to those capital projects. Yeah. So while at 33% sounds there's a lot. There's like 2 items there that have sort of driven most of that variation. The underlying operating performance is probably the key thing I would sort of be
for future. Thank you for that.
Yes.
It's a good answer. It was partially a rhetorical question, but I think it's important that I'd recommend you that when you got such materiality and it's driven by so few issues at the same time, might be a good idea to highlight that at the front of the report to the councillors. At least something for you to consider. Subsequent question, page 46 on the pack. It's an issue that was also raised in the outgoing council. It's the difference between the actual what we're doing and the carry forward, right? So I'm looking at the 76 million and I'm looking at the 19 million. So it's really the strike rate of 25% of what we're talking about. Since that was discussed at the outgoing council back in the June or July meeting, I may stand to be corrected on that. What progress are we making in that regard to limit, narrow the scope of projects that we do and then deliver a higher percentage of them?
Pass it on to Mo. If we can.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Rasmussen. With capital programs, I think as I've mentioned before at previous council meetings, a lot of it is reliant on consents. If you take Matarangi, for example, it's reliant on us getting the resource consent, and there are similar other projects. So while we do our best to achieve our capital programs, we are somewhat hamstrung by the timing of money. The same thing is with NZTA as well. There are financial allocations which you will see in the reports coming up later. The timing of that differs to our annual plans, but we still receive the funding and carry out the work. So there will be some swings and balances. Thanks.
Thank you, Mo. That's appreciated. Final one in support of the Mayor's request of being brief. On page 47, just connecting the dots, the public submission we had by Raven Baven out of Hahe, I assume it's the very same point that sits on the district, bullet point 2, page 47. That's a question.
No.
Hahe Beach Snake Gully project transferred 177.
Yep, I'm happy to answer that. So that your council applied for funding for Snake Gully. This came up in the public forum earlier. So I'm happy to answer that question now. Council did apply for Snake Gully work to NZTA, but it didn't get funded to the extent the funding was sought. They did give us some money. I think it was order of about 360,000, and there was some money left which is being carried forward. I think it's around 180. Yeah, it's close to that. But the project itself, it's about a $1 million project to do remedial works at Snake Gully, and that's a separate conversation we will need to have with the infrastructure committee in terms of approaching NZTA for funding.
Thank you, Councillor Rasmussen. Councillor Smith.
Good morning, Hayden. Thank you. I found this report really easy to follow, so appreciate that. I just had a question around building consent revenue. You mentioned the current economic climate, softer development contribution revenue, etc. Nationally, there is being reported an upturn in that situation. It's only slight, but there is an upturn. And I'm just wondering if the council, if we are doing any proactive work to understand any blockers for this district. So what I'm talking about there might be talking to surveyors and real estate agents, looking at website traffic on our own website just to see where people are going and perhaps if they disappear, why. And just on that vein, are we promoting in this area? So, you know, investment and development. I'm not sure if that's a question for you, but
Thank you. Mr. Brian. Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just clarifying that the budget revisions happen quarterly throughout the year, every quarter, budget revisions?
October and March. Yeah.
Okay, so only two.
Two. Yeah.
Okay, so then the Infrastructure and Finance Committee will have the opportunity to inform the March budget revision.
Yes.
Thank you.
Where the kind of questions we're having here will be had in spades, I would expect. Thank you. Sorry? Thank you. Have we had a mover yet for this? Okay, could I have somebody move this, the recommendations on page 44 to receive this report and approve this October budget revision? Councillor Rodley, thank you. It's moved by Councillor Rodley, seconded. Councillor Ashman. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Contrary? Carried. If we could move to item 2.3 before we break for morning tea.
I was going to suggest we had morning tea and then we did 2.3.
Thank you, Councillor Rasmussen.
Kia ora, through you, Chair. The report that you have with you today is actually an item that was referred to in the public forum. So at this point, I don't see that I need to outline the report. I think the member of the public did that very well. Just something for you to consider in that the council has previously made a decision on how they wish to undertake workshops. As of the request of the council back on the 25th of November, through a recommendation in the CE's report, it was requested that this be brought back to you. So in considering this today, if you choose to go down a different path to what this council currently operates in terms of its workshop, we will be seeking to get a revocation of a previous decision from you, and then we'll need to look at a resolution to then adopt whichever direction you choose to go in. So I will leave it there, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So questions? Hang on.
Just ask Una to update. We have a little bit more information available around cost.
Thank you. So through you, Chair, yes, you will recall that Council has made a decision to include 2 new committees. So what I've done is I have priced out the cost of a committee meeting round. So for one council committee meeting round, it's in the order of $26,000. Workshops themselves don't have as much involvement, but if you were to move to a fully open workshop process, you would be looking at in the order of another $4,000-ish. So that would mean a whole sort of cycle that includes committee meetings and a workshop. You'd be in the order of sort of thumbs up $30,000.
Thank you. That's on page 58, say further information on the actual cost we provided. That is that information there. Thank you. So other questions for clarification? Councillor Hampton.
Thank you. Just on that last piece of information, Una, you talked about the workshops being a cost of 4K and a total of 30. So the total of 30 that you're talking about is only for the workshops at 30K?
No, through you. So the cost of our workshop is in the order of sort of $3,000 to $4,000.
But the annual cost of 30?
That annual cost would be dependent on how many workshops you have.
Yep.
So for example, in the last LTP year, there was 14 workshops just alone on the LTP.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brillich. Microphone, please.
Sorry, Your Worship. I thought that what you were saying, I'm sorry, was that it was 26,000 plus 4,000 for the transparency measures, but you're saying it's 4,000 in total. And is that for option 2 or option 1 or status quo?
I will clarify. So I wanted to bring you back to the decision that you had made around the committees, because workshops and a fully transparent process of workshops is then on top of your round of committee meetings. So pricing out a committee round meeting, you are in the order of $26,000 for one committee. If later on in the agenda, there is another item for you to adopt the calendar of meetings for the year. There's 56 meetings in the year. So that's a total cost of in the order of $1.4 million. In addition to that, there are the options to having workshops, and a fully open, transparent workshop is in the order of $3,000 to $4,000 per workshop on top of that.
Okay. So another question I had was, if we're in a fully open workshop, option 2, and questions begin to get asked, which move into the area of confidentiality or commercial sensitivity, is there opportunity then to move the workshop into committee, or do we have to stay in the public arena and just avoid those questions?
Through you, Chair, this will need to be something that's really tested at the beginning of setting a workshop. Hence, there'll be a lot more work that needs to go into the workshop, the purpose of the workshop, and having a look at whether that workshop is to be considered public excluded, and also to have a look at all of the public interest tests. However, in a workshop style, if it does move into questions for confidentiality, the chair will need, or whoever is chairing that workshop, will need to ensure that you stay on track in terms of not going into those areas. And it may mean that at another later date, a follow-up session in confidence needs to be held.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Grant.
Thank you. Can I just clarify something you've just said, just so we're all really crystal clear? So if we are in a workshop and there are questions that are raised which would be of a confidential nature that would reach the threshold requirements for public excluded, we would not be able to continue with those at that time. We would have to defer those for another workshop that we would then have to set up at an additional cost of $4,000 roughly for each of those. And just to elaborate on that point a little bit further as well, the expectation of how many workshops a committee would generate as well, has that been taken into account in the pricing assumptions?
Thank you. Through you. So in answer to your first one, yes, you've probably outlined that exactly correct. Hence why there needs to be that real consideration at the beginning of a workshop as to what's its intent going to be, what's going to be delivered in that workshop and how that's going to be done. In terms of the pricing out of the number of workshops associated with the committees, that is a piece of work that will unfold, I suppose, after the first couple of rounds of committees. These are new committees. Some of those expectations around what will be driven through those committees is still yet to develop, and accordingly the number of workshops that may arise from that will largely be driven from a work program that is agreed between chairs, deputy chairs and the organisations.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair.
I have a piece of information that I'd like to share so that it's available to everybody, and then I have two questions. I'm on YouTube on the Our Coromandel channel, and I've been looking at how many people actually watch the full council meetings, which are available on YouTube. Our most recent council meeting has been viewed 107 times, which is approximately even. That's how many most videos get watched. So I would just highlight that there's a level of public interest is relatively low, but that's the information that I hold that everybody now holds. So two questions, and the first one, so this is a decision if we made today that would only apply to council and not to community boards.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. And so the community boards would subsequently have to make their own decisions about how they wanted public participation. Awesome. And the second thing, so the notification requirements, I guess, for option 2 and for option 1 would be that we would have to publicly notify that the meetings will happen in the same way that we publicly notify our council and community board meetings.
Through you, Chair, no, the publication of workshops is different because they aren't a committee and they're not a decision-making forum. We do need to advertise them, and so you would use the council channels. You'd use the website, you'd use the Facebook page, that type of stuff to make people aware that a workshop is on, but we would not need to do a public notice.
So it wouldn't be with the Valley profile, for example, it wouldn't be in the back with that. Okay, no, that's fine. And so because one of the things that I think we appreciated as returned elected members from the Waters workshops that we had last year is that quite a number of them were arranged to make use of the best of us. We're all going to be in town anyway. A couple of days before the meeting, hey, can you stay for an extra hour to have a briefing or a workshop about that? So that flexibility would still remain under option 1 and option 2.
Through you, Chair, I think under option 1 and 2, there will need to be a considerable amount more planning that goes into when a workshop will take place. That still doesn't mean, though, if there's an emergency workshop required or something significant has come up, that the organisation and yourselves can't be agile enough to work with that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Rasmussen.
So for clarification, $4,000 a meeting, and last year by benchmarking it was 14 meetings, so it'd be 56K in a worst case. That's a yes/no answer, please.
Just clarification, we're talking about workshops, not committee meetings.
Correct. Good. So if we are looking at in our budget, though that we've just had a significant variance in it, and we in there are spending between $12 and $14 million on representation, then 56,000 over that figure is 0.04% for openness and transparency, which ultimately gives our community and stakeholders.
Do you have a?
Yes, I have a question. I'll get to it if I may please be allowed. Okay. So for the integrity of council business and the fact-finding part of our roles, it actually promotes public confidence in the process. Would you agree that 0.4% would be a good investment? And I do understand that that's a EM decision, but I'm just asking about your position on it.
Yes, I think that's out of order, that question. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Una, for your report. I just have a question around does the proposed workshop framework also apply to community board workshops and briefings? And if not, is there an intention to include community boards within the scope of the open by default approach? And that's multiple reasons: ensuring consistency, transparency across council governance, but also because I believe many people in our communities very much rely on their community boards for touch point for information. So I think it's a lost opportunity.
Sorry, could I just ask you, just clarify the question again, please?
Does the proposed workshop framework also apply to community board workshops and briefings?
Okay, I think that was already asked by Councillor Sinclair and has been answered, so we'll move on. Thank you. Any further questions for clarification? Deputy Mayor Grant.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify some comments because I will call them comments rather than a question from my colleague councillor over the table in regard to his maths for the calculation of the pricing of workshops. And I think this is really important to understand. So my question is, the workshops will be generated through the committee structure. So unlike the 14 that was referred to, we now have 4 committees that will also be generating their own workshops. So that number is likely to increase significantly, particularly with the current workload on the various submissions and restructuring and changes that are taking place. Would you agree or disagree?
Through you, Chair, possibly. Without understanding yet what work is being driven through the committees, I can't say, but it is likely that there will be the potential for more.
I guess, to help specifically, I'm thinking about, finance and infrastructure and the various issues such as local water's done well. That is likely to require quite a bit of in-depth time in regard to these. So the second question that I have, and I think this is a really important one for consideration, and that is to do with standing orders and the position that a number of councillors have made in regard to this topic, and whether you believe there could potentially be a breach of standing orders for a number of councillors who have already declared their position on this topic.
Through you, I'm just doing across the table consultation with my colleague there. I myself wasn't here when the decision was first made, and I'm going to defer to Aileen, who looks like she's ready to say something.
So I think it's very clear that we have an obligation to approach this with an open mind. That's absolutely clear, and that all of us are here to listen to the debate when we get to the debate and then make our determination. So I am happy to work on that assumption that everybody is sitting here with an open mind, listening to the answers to the questions and then to the debate that goes on. And if anybody feels that that's not the position they're in, then I would appreciate them declaring a conflict of interest. Thank you. Councillor Rodley.
So you said before that there would have to potentially be a revocation of the previous decision that we did last year. Is that in regard to the fact that when we voted last year about it, we voted for the status quo? However, there was a feeling that...
So perhaps the owner could answer your question. Your question is, rather than answering it yourself, your question is...
Oh, yeah, you've talked to me about that. We adopted a let's make some notes and have them available, which wasn't strictly within the resolution that we made about the status quo. Is that the revocation that you are referring to?
Through you, Chair. Yes, this council back in June 2024 considered the report from the Ombudsman and also made a decision to remain to hold closed workshops. So, and yes, there's been some notes taken. Today, with putting this item back on the agenda, there are options for you to consider, and they range from the fully open to the closed and somewhere in the middle. This time round, if the council does decide to go down a different option, be it option 1 or 2, you will need to revoke the previous decision because you've actually clearly stated and held yourself to a decision at that point in time. In revoking that, you will then need to resolve and make a decision on which option, either 1 or 2, you wish to go with. Now, that is assuming that after your debate, that there is obviously there may be a clear steer that you are wishing to go down the option of 1 or 2. If the debate steers the direction of staying with option 3, then there will be no need for a revocation.
Councillor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Your Worship. So could you just confirm that at the meeting in June 2024, where the vote was 4-3 for the status quo, that there's only one of those councillors who voted against adopting any change at the time that has been returned to council?
Through you, Chair, I will have to take the lead from everybody who was there at the time. I was not employed by council then.
A point of order, I just point regarding relevance.
Okay, we'll find out about that. Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a detailed question around the workshops. They will be notified to the public ahead of time, along with an agenda of the items being addressed on that workshop.
Through you, Chair, if we get a decision today which is different to what you currently do, yes, there's a framework that is outlined within the agenda pack that takes through a high level, I guess, procedural way that we would deal with workshops. And yes, they will be advertised. There will need to be a purpose and a outline. I'm not going to call it an agenda because then you step into meetings. So there will be an outline of what is covered off in a workshop.
Thank you.
Councillor Brilovich. And could I just signal after this question, I'll just make a comment. We'll then adjourn for morning tea and then we'll come back after morning tea. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Through the chair. You're telling us that if we adopt a change today, that you're going to have to come back to revoke the current position and introduce the new position. Yet to me, when I read what we're making a decision on, item 3, direct staff to implement the chosen option and update relevant processes and guidance accordingly. So I don't see why. Can you explain to me why we have to go through another process? Because this is pretty clear that we're changing, if we choose to change the status quo, that this directs staff to go and implement that change.
Okay, through you, Chair, point 3, I believe, follows on based on referring back to part 2. First off, we need to have something on the table which would lead a direction for this. So based on council either going with option 1 or option 2 or option 3, that will then direct what happens in point 3. Option 1 or option 2 are different to the decision that this council has previously made. So if after debate, option 1 or 2 is the direction this council wishes to go in, there will need to be some wording changes to the resolution to revoke the previous decision, because that is a decision that council is bound by at the moment, and then introduce the new resolution on the option that you choose to go down.
Thank you, Una. Just prior to adjourning, I have it on advice from people who've been around the block a bit more than I have, that predetermination is not a conflict of interest, but it does introduce some risk for members. So just to bear that in mind. We will now take a 15-minute break for morning tea, and we'll come back. And when we come back, it would be a time when we would put the find a mover and a seconder for a motion, and we can then discuss and debate that motion. So meeting is adjourned. Back here, please, at 11 o'clock sharp. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for all being back here at 11 o'clock, and we will reconvene the meeting. As signalled before we took the break, I'd like now at this point to move to enable us to move to a point where we can discuss and debate this matter. I think we've had a good number of clarification questions, and I think we probably have enough information for us to be able to move forward and debate. So I'm referring now to page 59 in your order papers, and I am requesting, sorry, not page 59, wrong page, page 54 in your order papers. And I'm now requesting that we have somebody to move a motion and a seconder for that motion so that we can begin debate. Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to move that we resolve to adopt option 2 to introduce a workshop framework open to the public in person and via live streaming, with the recording made available as soon as practically possible after the workshop via Council YouTube channel.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Councillor Brilovich.
But I'd also like...
Just a moment, please. So we have a mover, Councillor Hampton. We have a seconder, Councillor Brilovich. And as a mover, the Councillor Hampton, you have the first opportunity to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. This for me is around transparency and full set of information for the public. I have experienced a lot of situations over the years where determinations are made by council where the background discussion would have been very useful in giving the public a clearer understanding of how council gets to a certain point. And so I think it is very useful for the public to witness those discussions and the early considerations on issues, and therefore be much better informed on how decision making occurs. I'll start there. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just had advice from governance that before we begin this debate, we need to receive the report. And so could I please have a mover to receive the report? Deputy Mayor Grant, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Fleming, Councillor Rasmussen. Very good. Okay, I'd like to put the motion to receive this report. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Sorry about that. Councillor Brilovich.
Thank you, Worship. I'm supporting this and I refer people to page 54 and the comments by the Chief Ombudsman. One way local government can earn trust is through transparent decision making that is open to public involvement and scrutiny. Transparency supports accountability, encourages high performance and increases public confidence. One of the things I've heard quite clearly is the public doesn't have a lot of confidence around decision making in the council. So I think this is a good way of increasing that. What I was going to say is I would like to amend this resolution to include something that we revoke the previous decision of council today now. Rather than waste staff time bringing back another report and going through another decision making process, I don't see why it can't be done now.
Thank you.
I've got a lot of sympathy for what the member says, because he's he's seconded the mover. So he can't actually change that side of it. It's a debate that could be taken, but from a point of order perspective, I don't think it's.
Thank you for the comment. Can I just check?
Through the chair, as the corporate services manager mentioned before, if we are to do option 2, we do need to revoke the decision, because for completeness, that is the decision that we currently have, and option 2 is different to what we currently have. So we will need to revoke.
And this recommendation of Councillor Brilovich is that we have in here item 4 or whatever, point 4, we therefore revoke. So it's all in one jumbo thing. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, that is what he's saying.
Yeah. Is that possible?
So through the chair, what he's saying is that, yes, it is possible, because we are operating under option C for standing orders, which means that anyone can make an amendment at any time.
But it would need Greg's approval.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Councillor Hampton, are you comfortable with that amendment to?
I'm just wondering if there's any update, executive on this.
I'm sort of torn because I think you need to actually make a decision and not worry so much about the detail of the resolution that we will sort out for you, so that when you come to vote, we'll have that up on the screen and you'll be able to do that. So the intention is we'll make sure that the decision that was taken some time ago is got rid of, shall we say, with whatever words the governance team think.
Thank you.
Once you decide where you want to go.
Okay, thank you.
But in answering Councillor Brilovich's question, that's, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Then I'm happy to have that added to my motion.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Rodley.
Will the fact that the workshops are going to will be recorded, will that negate the need to have staff working on the notes, but the presentations that staff give will still be available? Because at the moment, sometimes we have the notes that staff have made and then the presentations, PowerPoints or whatever from staff. So I'm assuming that there won't be the need for staff to take a whole lot of written notes because it will be being recorded, but those presentations will still be available. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So they will be available to the public.
Thank you.
Good. Any other comments? Well, in which case I propose that we put the motion.
Yes, it will be. Yeah. So we're going to share. We'll share what we have discussed on screen.
So the motion is that the Thames Coromandel District Council revokes the following decision made on the 27th of June 2024 and approves the following option for the management of workshops. Introduce a workshop framework open to the public in person and live streaming, with the recording made available as soon as practically possible after the workshop via the council YouTube channel. Moved by Councillor Hampton, seconded by Councillor Brilovich. I now put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Contrary? Carried. Would you like your vote recorded? Right. Thank you. Thank you. Item 2.4.
So the revocation that was on the screen briefly there, that was included in what we just voted on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Because it was a direct staff term. So it's an option.
Oh, thank you. Was that not on the screen? No. Okay, so not included in what we just voted is on page 54 under 3, the recommendations. Direct staff to implement the chosen option and update relevant processes and guidance accordingly. Moved by Councillor Rodley, seconded by Councillor Ashman. Is there any discussion? There being none, we'll put the motion. Those in favour, say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. I'm not saying no. There was no contrary. Carried. Thank you. We now move to item 2.4, elected members' expenses and resources policy. Thank you, Una.
Thank you, Chair. The next item on the agenda today is around the elected members' expenses and resources policy. This is a policy that outlines the various allowances and reimbursements that are available to elected members. These are provided for and driven from the Remuneration Authority, but for council to be able to enact those, they have to be included within a council policy. So the council policy is then updated on an annual basis because the Remuneration Authority's rates, for example, for kilometres travelled may change. So we look to update this policy on an annual basis. So following the election, the policy has now been updated with all of the rates and things included. Just two things to point out is that the Remuneration Authority has made a provision for home security allowances. This has not been included or recommended within the policy at the moment. And also we have tightened up around the travel time allowance. In the past, the current policy was quiet on that. However, it was being administered and provided for. In this policy, it has been excluded. So I'm happy to take any questions around the various parts of the policy.
Thank you, Una. Questions of Una? Councillor Sinclair.
So last term, the policy was similar in that we had a communications allowance, and there were a couple of councillors who still received hard copies, which I think was not in the spirit of the policy. And I'm just checking that that is going to be more reinforced this term.
Through you, Chair, it is the council's policy to aim for a pay per less policy. So we do provide for all of your information to be accessible to you via Resolve. There will still be instances, though, where a councillor may request a hard copy, and we do that on a as-needs basis. And it does come down to the size of the agenda, what might be going on, and the likes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right. So we move. Can I have somebody move? Oh, thank you, Councillor Rasmussen. Councillor Rilovich, microphone, please. Microphone.
I was wanting to move the recommendation with an addition. So, first of all, do we have to do a separate resolution to receive the report? And given the previous paper, it seems that that's the process now, but then I'd like to move the recommendation with an addition.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's move a recommendation to receive the report. I have somebody.
I'll move.
Councillor Brilovich, seconder. Councillor Hampton. No discussion. I move the motion that we receive this report. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Being none, carried. Councillor Brillage.
So I would like to move that approves, adopts the elected member expenses and resources policy as contained in attachment A, along with the reinstatement of the travel time allowance as per the Remuneration Authority's recommended decision or determination document. Now, the reason I say that is because...
Just before you do that,
Yeah.
do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Smith, thank you.
Okay. So speaking to that, I read in the report that the decision on page 60, third paragraph, in addition, the Mayor and Deputy Mayor have requested a travel time allowance of $41.30 per hour pro rata as eligible be removed. I tried to call you yesterday to talk about that, and we can have that discussion off to the side, but the reason I would like it reinstated is because I don't know the motivation around it, but it affects councillors disproportionately. So it's not an even haircut like the 5 or the 10% discount we took at the last council meeting. So from the Remuneration Authority pool, we've already dropped $5,000. It recognises the fact that some councillors spend a lot more time travelling than others. It basically indicates that our time is of no value. And this would already have been rated for, my understanding. If it's been used in previous years, councils would have carried on that budget. And we're already well down on the determinations, other things. For example, home internet is just over half what the maximum. Our cell phones are half the maximum allowable. Our ICT allowance is half what is allowable. So we're already well down, and also our remuneration, the Remuneration Authority bases our remuneration on the number of permanent residents because we have such a high absentee ratepayer that we are paying well below other councils with other number of rateable properties. So I just feel that the travel allowance is some way in recognising the time we spend in our vehicles driving to meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Brillage. Councillor Smith.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yes, I support this amendment too because I see this as not a benefit, but it's a mechanism to ensure equitable participation in council governance. And that's regardless of where members live. I think that removing it risks disproportionately disadvantaging those from more remote communities and undermining diverse representation across the district. And in that, I mean those who aren't retired, who have to work, who may have to take time off work, etc. I believe we need to ensure that we have a diverse representation, and this will go some way to undermining that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Sorry?
I don't have any comments about that, but I do have another amendment that I'd like made.
Well, I think we have. So where are we at with this?
We can do that. We can hear it.
Right. Okay.
So the amendment I'd like made refers is relevant to section 8.3 of the policy, which, no, my apologies. It's 9.3, which is on page 76 of the agenda packet.
Sorry, on page what?
76. And I do already have a seconder for this amendment. Following attendance at a conference, elected members may provide a synopsis of the conference to the council and have all expenses approved by the appropriate authority. And I think that asking members to potentially maybe report back on ratepayer funded conferences flies in the face of the decision we've just made in item 2.3, where we have asked for more transparency. And so I would like to move an amendment that changes the word may to the word must.
And I'm happy to second that.
Councillor Rilovich, are you comfortable with that additional amendment? And Councillor Sinclair, Smith, thank you. Okay. Any other, Councillor Rodley?
So I was just looking at within the document, there's the actual policy with the red lines about changes and things. I was just struggling to find the travel time. It's not. But if it's taken out, shouldn't it have been in there but crossed out? Or was it never in there? I don't know what it is I'm not voting on.
Through the chair, and you can correct me wrong about this one, Una. It was never in the current policy, so it's been included. So that's why you don't see it as a track change of being removed, because it was never in.
As I recall, the Una said that the current policy was silent.
Yeah.
On the travel.
It was silent, but they were paying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The policy was silent, and what we're now with this amendment would be making it not silent on that matter.
Question, please. So if it's not in the policy and a remit and decision was never made about it, how did we then get to implement and give effect to it? So being silent is not the same as actually doing something that is outside of the existing policy, which the way it's being outlined here appears to have been the case.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there any line? I don't have an answer. Okay, so could we please see the motion on the screen? Okay. So the motion is that the Thames Coromandel District Council approves, adopts the elected members' expenses and resources policies as contained in attachment 8 with the reinstatement of travel time and allowance and an amendment to the wording for 9.3. Councillor Sinclair?
Oh, I would just respectfully ask that the amendment to the wording and the reinstatement of the travel time allowance be considered separately, because I think that one will be contentious and the other feels like it has broad support. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Through the chair, it is, because you suggested the amendment. You had a mover and seconder, so we can look at that first. And then we can go back to the substantive.
So we're looking at item 2 on the screen, which approves and adopts the elect members.
Have a question?
Etc. Councillor Rasmussen?
It's just from a formality perspective that it can't be a reinstatement if it wasn't in there before. Then it would have to be through the introduction of or the establishment of, but it cannot be a reinstatement of something that wasn't there.
Good call.
That is, unless the previous policy to the track change in here had it in. Otherwise, we could change that with the addition of.
Yeah.
But we can work on that, because you're going to the amendment that Councillor Sinclair requested. Is that correct? Or are you doing my one first?
Through the chair, we need to address the amended following wording, which is for the conference, for the elected members must provide a synopsis. We're going to address that first, that amendment.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Before going back to the substantive motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that amendment was moved by Councillor Sinclair and seconded by Deputy Mayor Grant.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. That's what we're voting on. Number 3 there amends the following wording to change the may into must. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour, say aye. Against? There being none, carried. Now we go to item 2. Approves and adopts the elected members' expenses and resources policy as contained in attachment A with the inclusion of travel time allowance. Councillor Rodley.
So does that travel time allowance have to be put into the policy? I know it's currently on the expense claim form, but surely it needs to actually be in the policy specifically.
Yes.
Yes, it does. Councillor Hampton.
And does it need to have the amount of 4130?
Sorry, say again.
Does it need to have the amount of 4130 also in there?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
More questions?
Who was first? Councillor Grant.
Thank you. Can I just seek a clarification from staff? Because I'm very conscious that we've now made 2 decisions today that are going to add costs to this council. And this, in a time where we are trying to be absolutely prudent in what we do. So we've very quickly gone through and incurred quite a few $1,000s of extra cost to our operations. And now we're about to make another decision. Can we have any approximate idea as to what this costs the council per annum?
We will try and do some bit of research on that. But we can move to the next question. We might be able to bring something up.
Councillor Brillage.
First of all, in response to Councillor Grant's comments, this has been the practice up till now, even though it's not in the policy. So the budgets would have allowed for that. So it's not an additional cost. And to say that the councillors that live further away have to take more of a financial hit for the overall good, I believe is unjust. And that if there's going to be any financial hit, it should be right across the board. And the wording in regard, sorry.
Point of order. This councillor has already spoken on the topic. He is the mover of the motion. He has the right to speak last on the motion, but to counter everybody's statement as we go along seems to be.
So I think also the point you make, Councillor Brilovich, you did in your opening address, but.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, why I had my hand up initially was to help with the wording.
Right.
That rather than put the $41, whatever, should be in accordance with the Remunerations Authority determination, because they may change that amount and then we won't have to change the policy.
Thank you. Good point.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point. Anything else? Okay. Are we able to see? So first of all,
Through the chair, just from the last triennium, travel time was in the cost of $9,599.20, to be exact.
okay.
Oh, that was one financial year.
Thank you. Can we see the motion on the screen now, please?
Yeah. We're looking at 2 because we've done 3.
But aren't we going to have in there, in accordance with the inclusion of travel time allowance in line with the Remuneration Authority's recommendation.
Yeah.
Councillor Brillovich.
Could we have in accordance with rather than in line with, because accordance is accurate, whereas in line with is just general?
And authority is Y''S. Can we just change authorities to authority''S, please? Yeah. Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Contrary? So Councillor Sinclair, Deputy Mayor Grant. Thank you. Item 4. We have a mover for, so a mover around item 4, please. Councillor Rodley, what are you moving? Which one? There's 2 options there. Could we please ask staff just to clarify what the difference is between these 2 things? Simply.
Through you, Chair. The first one there is just that you are delegating to myself to make the wording changes. For example, what Councillor Sinclair has asked for. The other one actually provides for giving delegated authority to myself to actually update the policy following each year when the determination comes out.
Right. So the second one?
So to be clear, you're moving and the second one, the first one and the second one?
So it's
okay.
So he's moving the green one.
Okay.
Just a moment, Councillor Brillovich.
Oh, I was going to second it.
You were going to second that? Councillor Rasmussen?
So through the chair, so what we're seeing there in the green would equate to a delegated financial authority that does not need to come back to this chamber for any changes, but simply reflect whatever central government decides at that stage. So I would urge people to carefully consider that. I think the debate we've just had is sound. I think it's robust. I think a decision like that should be made in this chamber, as opposed to simply being given effect if any government in the future changes it to something that may be desired or undecided. So I believe this could have unintended consequences adopting that.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive.
I think that's a really good argument. One thing I would say though, there's a materiality thing in there. So if it's changing a rate by $1.50 or whatever per whatever, then that really doesn't warrant writing a report to come back to council. So if there was a mind to not run with that, would there be a way of putting a materiality on it such that minor amendments can be simply made?
I would be happy to take the CE's recommendation on the definition of materiality in this context, because I believe that's a good practical halfway house to achieve a workable solution.
Council, Chief Executive.
Just for the record, if we should do that, but putting that aside, if something did come out that was unusual, staff would take the decision to bring it back to council. We wouldn't even if we had that authority and something unusual popped up, we would be unlikely to use it and we would be likely to bring it back to council for your decision making.
Supplementary comment, yes, but just by way of example, the adaptation we've just moved, we actively opted out of a recommendation of central government with regard to the security allowance for councillors, because there was a decision that was made in this room. If we adopt, as it says there at the moment, and then we can have a vague, ambitious discussion about what materiality constitutes, then that decision would simply be flowing through and adopted without a debate in this room. That is the unintended consequence I'm raising people's attention about.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair?
I'm actually really comfortable with the way it sits at the moment because the reading says to reflect any changes to allowance rates, so changes by $1.50 and we don't need to make a decision about it, or provisions set by the remuneration authority. So yeah, I'm very happy and very confident, and I'd be very happy for it to just go like this, but I'm not a mover or a seconder.
So I
Councillor Rodley?
I think we do need to just change it. Instead of, at the moment it says 4. I think that just needs to be changed back to moved and seconded. Sorry.
Thank you. Right, let's put that motion. Delegates the Group Manager, Corporate Services Authority update the elected members' expenses and resources policy within the triennium to reflect any changes to allowance rates or provisions set by the Rem Authority. Moved and seconded by Rodley and Brilovich. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary? Do you like that recorded? Okay. Thank you. Carried. Item 2.5. We move to item 2.5, which is on page 78 of the agenda pack. Terms of reference for the Mayor's Efficiency Task Force and Councillor's portfolio.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The item in front of you now outlines 2 sets of terms of references that have been put forward for two groups that have been put up. The first is the Mayor's Efficiency Task Force, so providing you a copy with the terms of reference around that. And the second one is to provide a terms of reference for the recently established councillor portfolios. So happy to take any questions on either of the terms of reference.
Thank you. Any questions for clarification? Could I have a mover for item 1 and 2 to, thank you, Deputy Mayor Grant. Seconder? I'll second that. Oh, Councillor Hampton. Thank you. There'd be.
I do actually have a quick question.
Sure.
Just in relation to the responsibilities of portfolio councillors on page 81, there's a line, and I think this is a question for you rather than a question for the staff. Ensure consistent communication and messaging, including a 6-monthly report to council on portfolio matters. I just wondered what that was going to look like and how that would practically work.
So my expectation is that this will be something, A, that will get recorded in the mayoral report with elected members, that will be a consistent thing. And then in a council meeting on a 6-monthly basis, we'll have some sort of report in. That's my expectation.
And with the some sort of, with respect, it seems vague. Is that sufficient? Just to say that it's for council, that we'll report back to council? Because I want to make sure that the portfolio leads are not burdening staff by having to make reports or anything. I really want to know the quantum of this.
Sure.
I don't want any unintended consequences that are going to have impacts on staff workload.
So as a minimum, there would be a 6-monthly report, right? And perhaps we need to template that, but as a minimum. But I would anticipate that there are matters that will be arising that council needs to be updated on, and that can be absolutely informally by email or in members' reports if it needs to be more formal.
I guess the first thing you said was through the mayoral report, and that satisfies me. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Councillor Rasmussen.
It's just a point of clarification. So page 78.3, sub point 2, refers to the Mayor's Efficiency Task Force, and then it states attachment A. But on page 81 in the same pack, on page 84 in the same pack, it's actually attachment B.
So thank you, Councillor Rasmussen. I actually have in my notes here in opening this, to point that out, but I appreciate the fact that you've saved me those words. Thank you. You did right. Any other comments? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I just have a question about the terms of reference. Is this the time now to be asking that question? So it states with regards to the Mayor's Efficiency Task Force that meeting notes and recommendations will be recorded and provided to members of the task force. Notes generally confidential. Is there an opportunity for councillors to access those notes, or will they remain just with the task force members?
Yes,
I'd have a view on this. I think that in broad terms, the details will be made available to the full council, but there needs to be a degree of confidentiality because a number of the items that could be discussed of a confidential nature that may never proceed and are just discussion points that would have no relevance for release unless they were to be progressed in one way or another. So, I think that for the efficiency of this group, it makes sense to be able to have a record of what is discussed, but not necessarily broadly released, because there's no point in covering those if there's no further need to go into any further detail if they're not to progress.
Councillor Rasmussen.
I wholeheartedly support what Councillor Grant has just said. It's actually the effectiveness of the process that the Mayor Efficiency Task Force gives effect to would be structurally, from an integrity perspective, hurt and actually make it less effective in that side of it, because some of those discussions we're having are entirely hypothetical. So very much endorse what Councillor Grant said.
I find myself reflecting on some of the discussions that we have had, and I can see the points that Councillor Rasmussen and Deputy Mayor Grant have made. The alternative would be to sanitise the notes that we take, and I'm not sure how. It just feels like a burden on top of that. But Councillor Rodley?
Would they be able to be accessed through Lagoima?
I think probably not.
But we have now got.
They would certainly be redacted.
They would certainly be redacted, and so some of there's some commercial sensitivities with some of the discussions around, particularly our major contracts. There's some probably stuff that's sort of bordering on personal information, and certainly some other reasons for redacting. So I think, and I'm thinking on my feet here, I'd take some advice on this from our Lagoima team. But the decision is ultimately the chief executives or the delegate. In terms of the Lagoima process, I think the bones of them would be Lagoimable, but some of the content wouldn't be. And then you'd have to ask, well, how useful is that?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I guess this brings me to other questions that I had, and I'll just keep it brief. Regular reporting. So brief written updates. I know much of this is going to happen anyway, I might add, and we have seen that from already the Mayor Efficiency Taskforce, and I appreciate the work that it's doing. But I think just to ensure that the terms of reference contain this, I would suggest regular reporting, brief written updates that are then provided to full council and community boards, and ensuring that there's shared visibility. So, key findings, recommendations, and also just a note around clear escalation points. So identifying which matters are advisory only and which require wider councillor or board input before progressing. And I just raise these points just as a matter of transparency. I mean, we've just had a big discussion around transparency, and I think this is pertinent.
Thank you.
If I may, just to add, I fully agree with that, and I think that's the intention of the group. We need to have everybody on the same page through the whole process. So we're very keen to continue the transparency, but also to do it efficiently so we can move through quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, Your Worship. The second last bullet point on page 85, interim findings may be reported to the council through progress updates from the mayor. I would suggest that should be interim findings will rather than may, and that's not a reflection on how the task force has currently been operating, because I think they have updated council very well throughout.
Change from may to will?
May to will.
Sure. I don't have any objection to that. Right. Okay. So we have a mover.
Yes.
And a seconder. Could we see it on the screen, please? So we're receiving the terms of reference and to make minor editorial changes, and it's moved by Deputy Mayor Grant, seconded by Councillor Hampton. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour. Hang on. So why is item 3 not in there?
You only asked for 1 and 2 at the time.
Oh, so it was 1 and 2 in here, which is adopts the terms of reference, which is number 3.
Yeah. So through the chair, we'll make sure that we add the terms of reference, but noting that attachment A will be attachment B.
Yep.
And then, vice versa for the next one.
Yep. Okay. Right. So we're receiving, delegating and adopting terms of reference for the Mayoral Task Force, moved and seconded.
Yeah. Through the chair, do we need to note in the terms of references, reference for the Mayor's Efficiency Task Force, the amendment that was proposed?
That's number 2.
Yeah.
Yep. That will be done in under number 2. So we're moving and seconding items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Against? Carried. Oh, you want that recorded? Yes. Okay. Against Councillor Smith. Thank you. Now we move to item 2.6. Meeting schedule for 2026. And I'll ask Harry Hay to speak to that.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you through the chair. I'll take the report as read. Setting a schedule of meetings is fulfilling the requirements of giving a written notice for meetings under the Local Government Act. The schedule can be amended as required. We will notify members of any changes at that time. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Rilovich.
Thank you, Worship. Through the chair, is it possible that if we approve this now, we will get carpet bombed with appointments? Like we'll just get email after email after email of appointments for the whole year. Is it possible to pace those? Because then we'll put them in our diary and they will get changed and moved around, is my experience through the year. And our diaries will end up looking like our grandchildren use them for colouring books. So is it possible that we may be staged so the appointments come out a month in advance so we're not bombarded with it? Is that too hard administratively?
Through the chair, it's not hard, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's good to have visibility of what you have planned for the whole year. So it just makes more sense to be able to bombard you with a calendar appointments straight away, then as opposed to throughout the months, because we could be dealing with other existing commitments that you may have.
Thank you for that question.
Well, I was just going to support that. I would definitely want to have a year's vision because I am booking things well ahead and I need to know what my potential commitments are to council well ahead as well, not a month ahead.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Sinclair?
Yeah, the proposed meeting calendar makes 2, I think, rather big step changes in terms of the meetings of council meeting monthly instead of 6 weekly. But the bigger change for me is the community boards meeting bi-monthly instead of 6 weekly. And I understand that the Deputy Mayor phoned all the community board chairs and presumably they didn't seem too upset by this and it's going through, but I just wondered if you'd be able to comment on the discussions that you had with them, because there was a lot of talk about empowerment and this doesn't feel like a very positive step forward in terms of making sure that they've got everything they need.
Thank you can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Look, I think when you look at this, there is a lot of work on here and a lot of meetings. And when I saw this come out, and in the absence of the mayor and on his behalf, I did make those phone calls to gauge the reaction of the board chairs. And we had a really good discussion with each and every one of them, and they're willing to add any comments today if they would like to make any specific comments on this. I think the general thrust of the conversation was more along the lines of the community boards intend to meet on quite a regular basis and are likely to meet at least monthly, if not more frequently than that at the prerogative of the board chair. There will be the one formal meeting in which the formal matters of council will be proposed and submitted. And that's the cycle that staff need to have to be able to gear up for the papers that they need to prepare and the information. It doesn't lessen the activities of the community boards. In fact, if anything, I think it highlights the picture that they can see here with all the various other meetings that will relate to the community boards as well, that they'll be able to bring into account in their decisions about the frequency of their informal versus formal meetings. So that would be the summary of the discussions that I've probably had.
Thank you. Do we have any comment from any of the board chairs who are present? Okay, or online? Okay, Councillor Brilovich?
I do have some concerns that having them bi-monthly won't tie in. If council's seeking a recommendation from a board, it may have to move it out 3 months if they don't coincide. So I'm concerned about the phasing, and I don't think that bi-monthly is often enough. My personal view.
Councillor Hampton?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm actually in favour of the current schedule as it's proposed, and just in response to Councillor Brilovich, I think if there is a really pressing issue that needs to be put in front of the community board for their determination, that a special meeting could be called for that.
Thank you. Councillor Rasmussen?
I think the concerns raised are actually adequately covered on page 86, second dark bullet point, subsection third light bullet point. That's why I like numerical references, where it says, and it's actually giving license to, and I quote, boards may also meet independently for networking and briefing sessions at the discretion of the centre. So those concerns raised would fall under that point, in my opinion.
Thank you. Could I just pass a comment? And I'm actually going back to the discussion we had from the Ombudsman, but on page 54, the Ombudsman says local democracy is built on the premise that the closer decision makers are to the population they serve, the more the people can and should participate directly in decisions that affect their daily lives. This is an important task for councils to get right. And I'd just like to reiterate, we are absolutely committed to that principle. And that's the work that we are doing around the community board framework. We will not be walking back in any way from that commitment to ensure that we are engaging really well with our communities. This, I believe this paper actually supports that, particularly the section that has been raised by Councillor Rasmussen, and I'm comfortable that we will be achieving the objective that we need to in terms of having an effective local democracy. Any other comments, questions?
My only other comment is that I've asked a question and now we have a record of it that people can watch and see the outline of what we were thinking and see the evidence that there was discussion with the community. So I don't think this is wasted time or discussion.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
No. And that's why I was wanting to reinforce the statement from the... Right. So the motion we have, or we need, is on page 87, the recommendation. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? I would, Councillor Rodley, move. Councillor Grant, Deputy Mayor Grant. Being no further discussion, we'll put the motion that Thames Coromandel District Council receives the meeting schedule and adopts the schedule attachment A. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Item 2.7. Sorry, Tony, I didn't catch that. Right, so local water done well, TCDC approach. And could I just refresh people's memories that just a couple of weeks ago, we had a very intense briefing from staff about where things were at and where things were tracking. And the purpose of this paper is actually just to formalise their